Welcome to This is Beirut for this special edition about the ceasefire. With me on set is General Khalil Hello. Welcome, General.
Thank you, Tilia, for hosting me.
General, I'd like to start with you, but before I'd like to take our correspondent on the ground, Chelsea Al-Arif, who's currently between Saida and Tyre. Chelsea?
Yes, Tilia.
Hello. Chelsea, what
Hello.
can you tell us about your tour today between Saida and Tyre?
So it's been a long day since 4 a.m. since the announcement of the ceasefire between Lebanon and Israel, and we started our tour right. We can say that since we were in Saida and Sur a couple of weeks ago, the situation is definitely different. Life is slowly going back to the south of Lebanon. People are rushing to go back to their homes. What we saw from destruction is honestly horrible. Homes and businesses are on the ground, reduced to rubble, but people are still saying that they want to rebuild their homes and they're going back with some sort of positivity despite the pain.
How did you feel the atmosphere, the environment in which you are in? Is it tense? Is it gleeful? Is it stuck between the two? How can you describe the whole environment you're in?
I could say the environment is stuck between the two. Some people haven't seen their homes since the start of the war around a year ago. So they arrived to the scene, saw destruction. This was a big shock. But then they would say that as resilient Lebanese people, they want to rebuild, they want to go back to their homes, they're not going to give up on their homes. But you can see in their eyes that when they look at their rooms, at their kitchens, at all of their collective memories on the ground, it's a huge shock for them. But then they directly say that it's just buildings that go to waste and they will find their way back to rebuild everything. Despite knowing that some of these shops or buildings that have been reduced to rubble are businesses and are the ways of income of many people. But I think we will see in the next few months how the situation will unfold.
Thank you so much, Chelsea. General, I'd like to ask you, now that the ceasefire has been acted,
Yes.
How do Syria, Iran, Iraq, and the Houthis position themselves?
Let's start with Syria. Syria is cornered now because Israel, before this war, was regularly targeting the Iranian assets in Syria on a regular basis, because Syria is the corridor that links Iraq and Iran to Beirut. And all the weaponry and ammunitions of Hezbollah were funneled through Syria following different paths, either through Damascus or through Aleppo. And we have witnessed the bombardment of the Aleppo airport and the Damascus airport several times when the Iranian planes were landing there. And today there are a lot of talks about underground tunnels linking Lebanon to Syria, from where weapons were delivered through them to Hezbollah. So the message of Benjamin Netanyahu yesterday, I heard him. He gave 5 seconds to President Bashar al-Assad in his speech. And he said, you are playing with fire. And I think that President Assad knows what's about. The Syrian army is not targeted by Israel.
But it's a serious warning when he's telling
very
it,
serious,
and it's a
because
threat.
Very serious, because the Syrian army was never targeted by the Israeli Air Force. Only the Syrian air defenses were targeted when they were acting against the Israeli airplanes. But according to the open information, the Syrian army is helping Hezbollah to funnel the weapons through Syria to Lebanon. And this situation has been raised by some Arab countries with President Assad and by Europeans and Americans, telling him that this should stop. So, and what we have seen during the past 2 weeks in Syria, the bombing of the Israeli Air Force to Iranian and Hezbollah assets in Syria, that was on a regular basis, on a daily basis, and very heavily, and different from what we witnessed since 2015 till now. So I think that Syria is cornered and should comply with the international will. And Iran is not against this. You mentioned Iran. Iran is okay for the 1701, but always we hear Iranian seniors speaking in a contradictory way. So
Yes.
the Khamenei says the only way to deal with Israel is with weapons, and when Larijani says we are okay with the 1701, and when he transmits messages to the Lebanese government that they are okay with the 1701. So I think that the Iranian will comply also. And the most important incident of yesterday is that the American forces in Syria, they targeted the Iranian militias and the Iranian allies in Syria yesterday. And for the first time, they issued a communique where they speak about all this and where they say that they will assess the targets that have been bombed, and they will publish the result. And this is a clear sign by the American forces that are in Syria, that are limited, that they will act against the Iranians if they continue to target American forces or maybe funneling weaponry to Hezbollah. This is how I explain it.
General, I'd like to take Lynn Samoudi, who's live from the southern suburbs. Lynn, hello.
Yes, Celia, hello.
Lynn, what can you tell me of what you saw today while you were touring the southern suburbs?
Celia, so unfortunately, while touring the southern suburbs of Beirut, I witnessed a lot of devastation. I witnessed a lot of buildings that have just become rubble. The situation is quite contradictory, seeing that I can hear gunshots celebrating the victory or the beginning of a ceasefire, and at the same time you can see other people that are mourning their loved ones, that are just checking up on their businesses, on their homes that have been demolished. Right now I'm standing right beside a cemetery, and there's a lot of people that are coming to mourn their loved ones. So the situation in the southern suburbs of Beirut is a bit contradictory. It's like a paradox. And I'm currently standing in Autostrad Hadi Nasrallah, where it has been like a place that has been severely impacted by the Israeli airstrikes throughout the whole course of the war.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lynn. We'll stay tuned with you. General, my last question for you is, now that there's a ceasefire, Hamas called this morning to do the same thing. Yes. So what will that incur? So, for example, Hamas said that they called for a ceasefire. Would that be implemented as well on their side in Gaza? Because Netanyahu was very clear yesterday. He separated the fronts. So yes. Do you think there's a chance for Gaza to be able to implement a ceasefire?
Now, the ceasefire in Lebanon has been implemented under Israel terms, not under Hezbollah terms. And of course, like always, Hezbollah and any other party in the world, they turn their defeat into victory. If what happened in Lebanon is a victory, so what is defeat? So let's go back to Hamas here.
Yes.
Hamas is asking for a ceasefire since day one. And they want a ceasefire without releasing the prisoners, yes, the Israeli prisoners, yeah, because they are concerned about releasing them and losing all their cards.
Yes, they have the upper hand.
But these cards are already lost, because what remains of Gaza is really disastrous. The 44,000 people killed, at least 15,000 of them from Hamas, 100,000 people wounded, the destruction of at least 50% of Gaza, the destruction of tunnels. Hamas has lost every mean to harm Israel. What they still have now is light weaponry that they can barely defend themselves.
So they don't have the upper hand, and they cannot make these demands.
No. So if there will be a ceasefire in Gaza, I think it will be under Israel terms, and the first thing, they should release at least some hostages in order to have this ceasefire. The Israelis already offered them 45 days against a certain number of hostages. They refused because they wanted a package deal, they wanted an Israeli withdrawal from Gaza, and so on. So if they still insist on these conditions, the Israeli complete withdrawal from Gaza and the ceasefire, and also they are asking for guarantees, international guarantees,
Yes.
for this, and they don't want these guarantees to be from the Palestinian Authority. So I see the ceasefire in Gaza unlikely unless they release the hostages.
Do you think that there is a chance for the war to resume after the 60-day ceasefire in Lebanon?
Of course, according to previous experiences, 1993, 1996, 2000, 2006, yes, the risks are there. But let's be positive. Let's wait and see how the situation will evolve. What are the dynamics that will turn on in the next days, and what the Lebanese politicians will do at least as a vision for them for the next